Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Harrisburg City Council legislative session. Today is Tuesday, May 14, 2019. I'm calling this meeting to order at 6:05. Mr. Petrowski, please do the roll call.
Mr. Allett.
Present.
Ms. Bowers.
Present.
Ms. Daniels.
Here.
Ms. Green.
Present.
Mr. Madsen.
Here.
Mr. Majors.
Here.
Ms. Williams.
Present. Thank you. Moving on to the invocation, Councilwoman Ms. Bowers.
Thank you. I would ask that everyone please keep in your thoughts and prayers the family of Mr. Ned Smith. I would ask that you also keep Mr. David Smith in your prayers. If we could have a moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. Moving on to Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Majors.
All right, everybody please stand.
Thank you, Mr. Majors. Moving on to communications, we have none this evening. Before I move on to courtesy of the floor, I just want to take a moment and let the public know we had an executive session at 5 p.m. today in City Council chambers, and it was regarding legal issues. And also, I'd like to introduce Mr. Paul Costa. He's from Maverick Strategies. Would you please stand? Welcome, Mr. Costa. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you. Council members, he asked me to acknowledge that he's here, and if you would have any questions, that he's here to address those concerns or questions. Thank you again, Mr. Costa. Moving on to courtesy of the floor, I'll start to my right. Anyone can come to the mic now. Please do so. We have a little bit of hurry schedule tonight, so I am going to... No. I am going to ask everyone, please be very, very brief. I will give you 2 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Ronald Johnson. I'm a community leader on Allison Hill. My address is 1847 Zarker Street. I have some concerns about the spring, summer, and fall of 2018 that I've talked to residents from the bypass all the way over to Allison Street, and then from 13th and Dairy all the way out to the 29th Street line, and it's a consensus. I had to make this statement that we just cannot afford to go through another spring, summer, and fall like we did with the bad behaviors of these residents that are not cooperating at all or don't choose to live any better. I sat out last week and watched the children being children, and all I seen was all kind of drug activity all around them. I reported these addresses. We can't wait till you get the big fish. We need to act on these people now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And Ms. Green is our public safety chair. So if you have a few minutes after the meeting, I'm certainly sure she'll meet with you and talk and speak with you. Anyone else to my right?
Thank you, Madam President, and members of City Council, thank you. My name is Jane Buckwick. I'm 1901 Market Street. Ronnie is our leader. So one of the things I want to bring up is that the very streets where we are seeing children play, which that's what kids do, right? We've already had 2 shootings. One was shooting across traffic last year, if you remember that. It was Market Street. Mothers and children were running. I did catch it on our security camera, and the police responded most admirably fast. The other one is right down the street from Ronnie. Again, tons of kids out there playing. We're concerned about that. So what we're asking for, and we have an amazing resource with Blake Lynch. I mean, he's responsive to us. He comes and he talks to us. So we may want to just extend that out a little bit further and do a little brainstorming and problem solving in this. We want to keep this community nice, and we're out pretty tight, except for the ones who A, break the law, B, have weapons, and C, sell drugs. The rest of us are just fine. So just for consideration, Ms. Green, maybe we should just sit down and brainstorm that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anyone else to my right, please?
Russell Blust,
suggestion I have for you guys.
Mr. Lewis,
I
could you
drive my
please,
neighborhoods.
could you please talk into the mic?
Yeah, I drive my neighborhoods. I sit on the corners where they sell, and I tell them to move on. It does help a lot. If you look at the blocks where I own properties, you don't see drug traffic. Just a suggestion. I'd be glad to give you my phone number, because I don't mind sitting on your corners, because you're talking about Zarker. So you're literally a block away from properties that I have control of, so I don't have any problem sitting there, especially during the daytime and into the evening. So, the other comment I have to make is, I keep hearing from public officials, okay, from this city, about lawsuits. When I'm starting to hear, and you know what, I'd like to mention names in here, but I've been told by, I've heard people say it, I've been told by top-end officials, literally, this thing with lawsuits, like, everybody is inviting to have lawsuits, okay? To me, when somebody files suit against the city, they're not filing suit against the city, they're filing suit against the taxpayers. Now, I understand that you guys are also taxpayers, okay, in the city of Harrisburg. But the reality of it is, to challenge anybody to do a lawsuit, you're suing me, you're suing everybody else who pays taxes in the city of Harrisburg. I'm appalled at the levels that it's coming from. It's coming from the mayor's office, which is ridiculous, and other high-powered positions. And like I said, basically, we're suing ourselves. It doesn't, I wish I could sue myself, because I have millions of dollars in liability insurance. I'd love to sue myself and get millions of dollars out of my liability insurance, but it doesn't happen that way.
Okay.
So, and I still have not had anybody from city council contact me for any of the ideas, and I've left 2 messages now, so, and
Okay.
as many as whatever here.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Anyone else?
Tim Rowbottom, 333 South 18th Street, Harrisburg. I just wrote another quick letter. I'm writing this letter in complaint form to recite the rights of the citizens and to express the illegal actions being played out in the city and county. I filed a complaint to the AG's office today to documentally prove many personal attacks being played out on the EPA brownfield sites by the city and county to adopt a comprehensive plan that strategically must acquire private properties to accomplish any of the stated goals. This is a crystal clear attack on private property rights initiated by the industrial rezoning using many outdated and factually deficient tools to accomplish this by staging and hiring consultants to act as public input, by serving notice using newspaper notifications outdated and reduced to almost non-existent, by using codes to cite these properties and other properties owned by these owners, by using public works to falsely charge for services not received, by not issuing permits to rectify or build, by not issuing mercantile licenses, using all these tools at your disposal to acquire properties, pushing through partnership acquisition of these properties while denying others, using repository sale to direct properties to partners while declining others and taking their money to do so, and finally issuing funding available to only government and nonprofits, aborting all rights to private property owners as the only owners in these sites. This is to put you on notice of another class action suit being prepared, labeling these illegal actions as theft of real property and a complete violation of trust given to the officials elected to serve. Another complaint is being prepared to show religious and political discrimination being played out on me daily. I have been denied my ability to open and launch a Christian nonprofit where this current administration has stated many times his disapproval of these nonprofit organizations in the city. What will happen when the citizens truthfully realize the complexity of these allegations and how their rights have been repeatedly violated while others are promoted and given grants? What will people think when they see that a senior advisor to the mayor can threaten a citizen, be fired, and still receive many resources from the administration that fired him in form of hush money and many grants?
Okay, Mr. Rowbottom, that's your 2 minutes. I'm sorry, but we do have to move on.
I understand.
Thank you. If you would give us a copy of that, we certainly would be agreeable.
Is there a copy of the AG complaint on there?
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go a little bit away from the regular agenda. Instead of moving on, pardon me. Pardon me? Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any public comment in the middle? Is there any public comment to my left? I apologize. We're going to go away from the agenda today, and instead of moving on to approval of minutes, we must really move down to resolution, and we need to do Resolution 35. Mr. Petrosky, please read that into record.
Yeah, Resolution 35 of 2019 was moved by Mr. Madsen, seconded by Ms. Green. It's a resolution in support of the continuing cooperative efforts of the city and the Harrisburg School District to foster environmental stewardship through the establishment of a city composting facility.
Okay. I'd ask for a motion to suspend the rules, please. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Grover?
Madam President, thank you. This request comes directly from my office in relation to an ongoing zoning hearing we're participating in Susquehanna Township related to the proposed composting site. The process is a multi-step process which we lay out in the resolution, and this is really the first process we've been stalled at for some time. On May the 7th, there was an objection made to an option agreement that is fully executed between the city and the Harrisburg School District. It doesn't involve money, but it's what gives us the right to be on the land so we can allow DEP on the land for a permit evaluation. If all of those things went through, then it'd be a lease agreement that would have to be approved by this body and by the school board when the parties came to terms on price and length of term and all of those things. It does define the option agreement, that the physical territory which was required for the zoning board to tell you where we were going to be on the school district property. There is a part 2 of that hearing is tonight. That starts at 6:30, and we're literally litigating the question about whether the agreement required city council approval, and to avoid the need for that ongoing litigation, I have requested that the council approve what we otherwise would say that doesn't have to be approved, so we can take it and put it as exhibit in that hearing and move on to the substance of whether the composting facility fits onto the property. That is what we are trying to do tonight. Otherwise, we'll be back up in court fighting about the validity of the agreement, which seems a waste of public tax dollars, frankly, for everybody, the city and Susquehanna Township. So we have asked the council to do that. The option agreement is attached as Exhibit A to this document. It has been drafted based on the history of this, and I will note that this body approved a prior beginning of this process with the school district to explore this back in 2016 by resolution. So it's been ongoing for quite a while, and we ask that this receive a vote now, although it's out of order from the usual, and then we intend to deliver it if the council approves it with a seal on it up to the hearing this evening.
Okay, thank you. Council members, is there any discussion? I'll start to my left. Ms. Bowers?
No, thank you.
Ms. Green?
No.
Mr. Madsen?
No, thank you.
Mr. Allett?
No, thanks.
Mr. Majors?
Just for clarification again, this is just to get the process going. This isn't.
It's to keep the process going. We literally had a 10-minute hearing of a 3-hour hearing 2 weeks ago.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Ms. Daniels?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Just one question. I read the option from the Harrisburg School District.
Yes.
And we're only going to pay them $100?
That's because the document has a face value
It
on
has
it.
a face value, I know.
Of having and holding the option that no one else
okay,
does.
okay.
And,
That's good.
but essentially, if we can't get zoning approval, the land doesn't work. If we can't get a land development approval, the land doesn't work. And if we can't get a DEP permit, the land doesn't work. If all of those things came into place, then we would have a lease that says how much money it actually is.
Okay.
So,
At this point, I'm going to open it up for public comments on this particular resolution. Is there any public comment on that to my right? Is there any public comment in the middle? Is there any to the left? Okay, thank you. I need a motion to go back into the agenda, legislation session business.
So moved.
Second? Second. Thank you. Moving back into the agenda. At this point, since there's no additional comments or questions, please call the vote.
Mr. Allett?
Yes.
Ms. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Madsen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Resolution 35 passes.
Thank you. And, I don't think it's necessary for
I don't think
recess.
we're recess either,
Yeah,
no.
I'm just going to sign it, and you can just, Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grover. Okay, moving back into the legislative agenda. We're moving on to approval of minutes. Approval of the legislative session minutes of April 23rd, 2019. Council members, any deletions, corrections, or omissions? Hearing none, minutes will stand approved as such. Moving on to reports committee. Report from Chair Bowers on the special workshop session of April 30th, 2019. Mr. Bowers, are you ready with your report?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Madam President.
You're welcome.
On Tuesday, April 30th, the Building and Housing Committee co-hosted an affordable housing workshop with the city. During the workshop, city council members and attendees learned about inclusionary housing and inclusionary policy design. Penn State Harrisburg MPA students returned to share their presentation on an exploratory study of U.S. capital cities' affordable housing policies. We also heard presentations from Shelby Nauman and Miriam Soto on behalf of the Lancaster Housing Opportunity Partnership and Craig Wolf on behalf of the YMCA York housing programs. Through the workshop, we learned of some feasible options to address affordable housing within the city of Harrisburg. Thank you to all my colleagues for your participation. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. Moving on to report from Chair Allett on the work session of April 7th, 2019. Mr. Allett, are you ready with your report?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
On April 7th, the administration presented the draft of Harrisburg's 5-year financial plan that was submitted then ultimately to the Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority of Harrisburg. By way of background, the ICA was developed through an action of the state legislature last fall, and as such, the ICA was formed to review and work with the city on this proposed 5-year financial plan. The draft form that we got was submitted and presented to council that detailed kind of the budgetary expectations, revenue projections, expenses projections throughout the next 5 years, and how we look to address whether it be debt, capital improvements, and all things included in that. Next step for this process, we do have a meeting confirmed. We suggested that it might be good for members of the ICA to sit down with the administration as well as Council President and myself to see where everybody is in terms of their understanding going forward and if there's any consensus or where we need to go from here in order to move this forward. If it's approved by ICA, it would also have to be approved by council. So we would probably have that come back down as a resolution for us to be able to have even further discussion on before coming to a prior vote. Neil, am I capturing that fairly correctly at this point?
I think so. Because it's the first one that's ever existed, there's a question of what all the requirements are.
Right.
And we have not heard back that I'm aware of from the ICA what next steps they want to take. We know their next public meeting is on the 22nd of May.
Right. And so we do, and even in discussions I've had with them, they're just looking forward to come to the table and have kind of a group discussion on it.
I think that's the only rational way to do it.
So that concludes my report for right now.
Thank you, Mr. Allett. Moving on to ordinance first reading. Tonight, we have none. Moving on to ordinance for amendment, we have none. And then we move on to ordinance for final passage, we have none. We move on to resolutions. Resolution 30 of 2019. Mr. Petrosky, please read that into record.
Resolution 30 of 2019 was moved by Mr. Major, second by Mr. Allett. It's a resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into a professional services agreement, Kittleson and Associates Incorporated, to perform a traffic and community impact analysis on the proposed I-83 Capital Beltway PennDOT project.
That will be placed in Public Works Committee. Moving on to Resolution 31.
Resolution 31 of 2019 was moved by Mr. Allett, second by Ms. Bowers. It's a resolution approving the second proposed 2019 budget reallocation.
That will be placed in Budget and Finance Committee. Moving on to Resolution 32.
Resolution 32 of 2019 was moved by Ms. Daniels, seconded by Ms. Green. It's a resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to submit a grant application in the amount of $250,000 to the Commonwealth Financing Authority for the purpose of obtaining match funding for the development of a Chutes and Ladders playground in Reservoir Park.
And that will be placed in Park and Recreation Committee. Moving on to Resolution 33.
Resolution 33 of 2019 was moved by Mr. Major, seconded by Mr. Allett. It's a resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to submit a grant application in the amount of $2,240,000 to the Commonwealth Financing Authority for the purpose of funding the Harrisburg East-West Multimodal Connection Project.
And that also will be placed in Public Works. Moving on to Resolution 34.
Resolution 34 of 2019 was moved by Ms. Daniels, seconded by Ms. Green. It's a resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to submit a grant application in the amount of $50,000 to the Commonwealth Financing Authority for the purpose of funding a feasibility study for replacing the Jackson Lick and Hall Manor pools with park splash pad installations.
That will be placed in Parks and Recreation Committee. Resolution 35. We've already voted on, so we'll move on to Resolution 36.
Resolution 36 of 2019 was moved by Mr. Madsen, seconded by Ms. Green. It's a resolution approving the lot consolidation and preliminary final land development plan submitted by Dr. Eric Dar on behalf of the Harrisburg University to construct a new 17-story mixed-use building, including a hotel, restaurant, and university classrooms.
And that will be placed in Community and Economic Development Committee. Moving on to Resolution 37.
Resolution 37 of 2019 was moved by Ms. Williams, seconded by Ms. Bowers. It's a resolution in support of Census 2020 Complete Count Committee initiatives.
Council members, this will, regularly I would place this in the Administration Committee, but I'm asking you for your support tonight in this initiative for the 2020 Complete Count for the census. Is there any questions or concerns about Resolution 37? Hearing none, please call the vote. Mr. Petrosky.
Mr. Allett?
Yes.
Ms. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Mr. Madsen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Resolution 37 passes.
Thank you, council members. This certainly is what we need to do to make sure we have an accurate count to get the funding that we need for the city of Harrisburg. It's really very, very important that everyone participate in the 2020 census for the year 2020. Thank you. Moving on to old business, council members. Is there any old business at this time? Hearing none. Moving on to new business, council members. Is there any new business at this time?
Yes, I would just like to recognize that this week is actually National Police Week. So just thank you to all the officers who serve us every day, serve the city, and keep us safe. So thank you.
You're welcome, Ms. Green. Any other new business?
Yes. Just a few things. One, just for all residents to be aware of, particularly those who live in the city's 6th Ward, Dauphin County Board of Election has changed the polling place that was held at United House of Prayer for All People at 349 Riley Street. It is now the Susquehanna Art Museum at 1401 North 3rd Street. This move was made due to construction currently being, currently underway at the United House of Prayer for All People, and unfortunately it's going to conflict with voting. However, this move to the Susquehanna Art Museum will be a permanent move going forward. So I just want to make sure people are aware of that. New voter registration cards are being issued for all voters in the election district, as well as a separate postcard alerting them to the change of the polling place. If anyone has any questions or concerns, feel free to contact the Board of Elections at 717-780-6360. Also, I would be doing my due diligence as a public official in the city to remind everybody that next Tuesday is Pennsylvania's primary day, so go out and vote. It's definitely one of the things you should exercise your right to do. Last thing, as just a matter of procedure, Resolution 36 of 2019 was introduced tonight. I wanted to make the announcement now and going forward that I will have to recuse myself from the vote for this legislation due to my employment with the university. So I will not be participating in any discussion of this at work sessions and such, and will allow this to move forward without my input, vote, and/or consideration. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Allett. Any additional new business? Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn? May I have a second, please?
Second.
Meeting is officially adjourned.